So I saw Prey this year as well, and I must say I didn't think it was too bad. I did you see it?
Yeah, unfortunately.
You didn't like it.
No, I never
So
really liked the Predator Alien stuff that came after the like.
I
I
didn't
like
like that
Predator
either.
1 and 2. That's great movies,
Hmm.
but this is just
Greetings, friends. What's up, and welcome to episode 148 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, I'm talking to Tomas Akvik of Bloodbath. We spoke about the new record, Survival of the Sickest, how he ended up joining the band, as well as a host of other topics. Later on, I will also be reviewing the new Gaerea record, Mirage, and I will be listening to and giving you my first impressions of new music by your favorite bands, as well as setting the world to rights on my weekly News Rant segment. So thanks very much if you've decided to spend the next 2.5 hours with me. It is going to be an absolute blast, and if you're new to the podcast, make sure that you elbow drop the subscribe button on your podcasting platform of choice. Leave me a like, a comment, a 5-star review, whatever the spirit moves you to do. And of course, follow me on social media. And if you really want to show your love and support to the show, then buy something off the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store. Christmas is around the corner, and there is no better time or opportunity to get in the good graces of your grandparents than by gifting them a grim yet fashion-forward Into the Necrosphere t-shirt or hoodie. If you are not yet doing so, then make sure that you follow my fellow horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. Brandon Legion of Horrible 666 drops his episodes every Monday. On a Wednesday, Mike Hill delivers Everything Went Black. I was on the last episode 269, where he and I spoke about modern black metal, and we gave the old guard a bit of a spanking for some of their ignorant comments about the quality of new music. On a Thursday, Mike returns with Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid of Necromaniacs. Necromaniacs, of course, is one of my favorite podcasts every week. If you're a fan of horror movies, there is absolutely no reason why that should not be at the very top of your rotation. And I'm actually going to have the two mics on this podcast at some point in the next couple of weeks. We have an idea for an episode that I think you guys are all going to very thoroughly enjoy. I'll tell you more about it once that gets done. On a Sunday, make sure that you check out Carl Haikara with his occult-themed podcast, Soul Knox. He has recently had on guests like Naz Alchemeth of Ecclese, and he also has had recently my friend Cheyenne of Trivax. Cheyenne will be back on this podcast at some point in the future, I hope. And also, you need to make sure that you're listening to Cheyenne's podcast, Iblis Manifestations. I think he's up to episode 20 already, so going from strength to strength. But on that note, my friends, thank you so much for checking out the show. I hope you are going to thoroughly enjoy the next 2.5 hours with me. This is Tomas Akvik of Bloodbath.
So I think probably first and foremost, congratulations are in order, because you are new to the Bloodbath fold, if I'm not mistaken.
yes.
And I noticed from your clean looks that the bruises and the beatings and stuff from getting blooded and getting hazed into the band has now gone away.
It's gone now. They've been hitting me a lot because you played wrong. And
Well, it's like you've seen those documentaries about like the gangs, like the Bloods or the Crips or whatever. I think MS-13. They time it for 13 seconds, and there's like 13 seconds you get punched and kicked, and that's how you get blooded into the gang. So like I said, Nick, and all the rest of the guys are throwing a few fists your way. But dude, how did all of this come about? I mean, I know you had the Catatonia connection because you've played guitars for them on tour. But I mean, this must have been a pretty big deal for you, right?
that, of course, yes. But that's how it happened, because the bass player of Catatonia, Niklas Sandin, I've known him for like 20 years. That's how I got into Catatonia. And then when the same situation came up in Bloodbath, they asked me, because they knew me from Catatonia. So they asked me if I wanted to play, and I said, yeah, of course, I can help you with a live, because there was just Sodomizer Per Eriksson. He was playing something else. So they asked me for 3 shows, and I said, yeah, cool. and then it just continued on. And then they asked me if I wanted to join the band later on for the Arrow of Satan is Drawn album, but at that time I was studying, so I couldn't put my full time into it. Yeah. I thought that the band needed someone who was, who could do that, so it would be unfair to them. But I didn't finish my study, so I could have. But then again, the opportunity came up again, and with this new album, so here I am.
Yeah. What were you studying?
I was like not finishing. I was like getting some extra physics, math, and biology. I was just trying something else. I don't know. But yeah.
And when you say trying something else, from what were you changing before?
Oh, I was like work and stuff like that. I work as a sound engineer, and I was like, yeah, maybe I'm gonna try something else. But yeah,
you felt like it's like Godfather 3, just when I was out, they pull me back in, kind of thing. So you're carrying on as a sound engineer then?
Yeah. Yes.
And how long have you been doing that for?
My whole life. I don't know. I think I started my small little company in 2007 or something like that.
And I mean, you're not massively younger than I am. You turned 40 this year, right?
Yes.
So how? So you started the company when you were 25 years old. How did you go down that road of getting into sound engineering and deciding to start your own thing?
Oh, I was working at a place called Scania. It was like making trucks, and it was really boring making trucks. And I figured I was, I like music. I like play music, and why not try studying some sound engineering and stuff like that? Just to do something that is music related.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it happened. So and then I had some friends who were engineers, and they all had their own companies and stuff like that. So it just naturally, my father also had his own company, not as a sound engineer, but so he helped me out as well, and
kind of showed you the ropes on what to avoid.
Oh yeah.
Tax loopholes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did he do out of interest?
He was I don't know how to say it, but it's in Swedish it's math techniker. He is before they start building stuff, it's like, here is the road, and he sets it out. He like
civil engineering, I think.
I don't know. Yeah,
like maybe? Civil engineering or city planning, which it's insane. Like if you look at some of the video games and stuff coming out right now that actually do that. Have you ever seen City Skylines? I don't know whether you play games at all.
Yeah, I play games a lot.
But yeah, if you check out City Skylines, it's the most mind-blowing thing I've ever seen in my life. Like remember, think back to SimCity, and then just turn the turbo up on all of that as much as you possibly can. It's like you even plan out. So you do the whole city planning, but you even plan out things like bus routes. You plan out where if there's, I think they have trains as an add-on in it as well. Like truck routes, you plan what how the road has to go, what zones are in each city. It's absolutely fucking incredible. But it's it's at a point where, I mean, I know a guy that got so into it literally becomes like another job. It's like there's so much to think about. It really becomes like another job. But how did your dad feel about his son going down the sound engineering route? Because I would assume a lot of what you were doing from a project perspective would have been metal orientated, correct?
Yeah. It is. It is, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was. I guess he was worried that I wouldn't get any jobs and stuff like that. But because I was a lazy kid, I was really lazy as a kid. I know my mother. She I don't know, like 15 or 14, 15, something like that. My mother like forced me into doing summer work. She was like, I have applied for you at my job here. Just be there at 7 o'clock. You know.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
She was like, I'm determined to make sure that he knows how to earn an honest day's pay.
Yeah.
What job was that?
Some postal service at AstraZeneca, a drug company.
I'm about to say the enemy. It's no, I'm only joking. But anyway, yeah. So like an internal mail assistant kind of thing.
Yeah. I was. There were some huge piles of papers of, I think, like people filing for missing orders. They're missing parcels and stuff like that. And I had to. Oh, it's not arrived. Then I have to pick up, answer phones and, hey, have you found my package from blah 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 pharmaceutical stuff, engineering and shit? No.
Yeah.
So something like that.
And how long were you able to survive that before you were on the verge of going completely insane?
I actually did all my weeks there. I think it was 3 or 4, but I survived them because they were really cool people working at that postal office. So I had a good time, so it was great. But the work thing, it was quite boring.
Yeah, dude. I remember when I moved to the UK 20 years ago. I arrived here in February 2002. My first job was in customer service. The next job that I did very briefly was admin at a hospital. Oh my God. I have never, when I was young, I had chores, and the chores included raking up leaves in the autumn, mowing the lawn, washing cars and shit. I would do all of that stuff a million times over before I spend another hour at a hospital doing any kind of filing work or administration work. It's fucking horrendous. Like I can totally understand when people who work at hospitals start dipping into the medicine to help them get through the day, because it's a fucking nightmare. But so by this point, were you already into the heavier side of music? What kind of got you started down that road?
It was quite early, but I think like my first ever bought something album, or I bought a cassette with Vanilla Ice live in somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was very young. I don't remember at all the age, but we had a Walkman with the cassettes in it. And then my mother's like not uncle but aunt, the feminine version of uncle, the aunt. She bought me Michael Jackson Thriller.
Okay.
Yeah, really good album. Michael Jackson is great.
Yeah.
And then from that, I don't know, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, of course, and then into Sepultura, Napalm Death, Cannibal Corpse. But one that, all of those stuff was very scary at first. But the one album that really caught my attention was Like an Ever Flowing Stream with Dismember.
Yeah.
I remember first I was like, what the fuck is, because it was so, I don't know. It's so great. It's the greatest album in death metal. I remember walking, trying to, because it's very hard to listen to. There was I found a lot of stuff interesting, but still, and also scary, but it was just so intense, and so it was my own stuff. I felt it was my own music. No one else listened to this. It was because we were not that many metalheads in the school and stuff like that. So I was really, I remember, and then it's all history.
Well, I was about to say it kind of goes from there. I remember hearing Dismember for the first time on Death Is Just the Beginning, Volume 3. The Nuclear Blast compilation video, and I liked it, but what stole the show for me on that compilation, and it kind of overshadowed all the other bands that were on there, was Sinister. When I
Okay.
heard Leviathan, like when I saw that Leviathan music video for the first time, I was just like, I'd already started getting into death metal and stuff, but that band to me was just a complete step change from anything I'd heard. It was like, it was so aggressive and so intense and so fucking evil. And then you got the music video, you know, where if you've seen it, it's like this guy in a cave and he's doing some fucking stupid ritual. I mean, it's so unbelievably cheesy and badly produced, and yet completely brilliant. But yeah, they stole the show. And I remember also on that video, Swedish legends. I saw the Pleasure of Molestation music video by Hypocrisy, and that opening vocal line, like, you know, when he does that growl, you know, anyone who's heard it will know it is fucking monstrous. I mean, you listen to it and you go like, did I just hear a fucking demon coming out of the sky? Like, what's going on here? But
his vocals is insane, actually.
Yeah. But I know what you mean about the scary, like, you know, as you when you're that age, like I don't know how old were you when you first heard Guns N' Roses?
Oh, Guns N' Roses, 12, 11, 12, I don't know.
Yeah, it's roughly about the same for me. I was about 11 years old. First Guns N' Roses song I ever heard was Pretty Tied Up.
Yeah,
which,
okay.
you know, to this day is my favorite Guns N' Roses song. But I remember, like, you're into that stuff, and it's like you can deal with heavy music. You like heavy music, but then the first time that you hear something like Hypocrisy or Sinister or Deicide, like I remember seeing God of Emptiness for the first time, like the music video with the guy, you know, transforming into the demon, and I was like, you kind of don't know whether you should like it, but you know that you do like it. You know what I mean? And that's a fucking amazing feeling. Like I sometimes when I watch back some of those old songs or some of those old videos, I kind of still feel a little bit of that. It's like part of the best part of the discovery of this kind of music.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a great video. That one. I remember seeing. I think as we recorded. I don't know. We had the cable TV early with lots of channels and stuff like that. So we recorded when I saw Warwick's Headbangers Ball.
Yeah. And
just, you know, skipped through it the next day, you know, got home from school, you know, skipped through it, and then, oh, what is this? A triple thrash 3. Triple thrash. I can't pronounce it.
I think I remember what you. So they used to do Into the Pit right at the end.
Oh yeah, Into
the Pit had all of the really had all of the brutal stuff on. And I, like, for me, I was like, most of the time I skipped to see who the person is that she was interviewing. Yeah. And most of the time it wasn't someone I was interested in, but every so often they had David Vincent, and they had Typo Negative, and they had some bands that I liked. But the main event for me was seeing the Headbangers Ball Into the Pit section. Like, because there I discovered Emperor, and I discovered Satyricon. I discovered, I'm trying to think who I also on there for the first time. Samael. Just so many things, and I there was always something fucking cool about it, and I would watch those videos until the tape is literally stretched and messed up. You can see how many times I've rewound to the same spot. But I mean, even there, like, I remember seeing The Lost and Curse of Reverence by Emperor for the first time, and just being gobsmacked. It's like, how fucking brilliant is this? Like, so dark and
when he stands there with his armor and singing, that's really cool. Yeah.
Well, his armor that he can't move in properly, because there's one bit where, like, he moves in beat to the drums, like throws his guitar up like he's He-Man, but it looks so fucking bad.
Yeah.
But so you say at school you were kind of the odd man out. No, not a lot of metal guys. How were you, like, as far as kind of outside maybe of Headbangers Ball? How were you discovering stuff? What was sort of your guide as you found more bands and discovered more bands?
I had a couple of friends in school who were also, metalheads, and their younger brothers, who also had a band together. They had a lot of influence and a lot of music, and they'd like, oh, listen to this and listen to this album, listen to this. Have you heard this one? You have to listen to this. So we always sat at their place and talking to their older brother. We thought they were really cool. Oh yes. And then we every time you got the like kids allowance or something like that, the money you get.
Yeah,
you
pocket
get,
money.
We went to a store in Gamla Stan, which is still in Stockholm, which is still there. I was raised in the suburbs outside of like a 40-minute ride with train. So we went to a store called Sound Pollution, which is in Stockholm, which is still there. Also really cool. It's the same. We went there and always like, and picked this pile of CDs, and then the poor guy had to like, can you put on the next record, please? Can you skip the intro? Because they didn't have a CD for you to, you weren't allowed to fuck around with the CDs and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, we had one called Rebel Music, and I remember they had like this station where you couldn't go back, but you could always go forward.
Yeah.
But I remember I'd work my way through the whole thing, and then I'm like, oh, I'm still not sure if I want to buy this. Can you start it from scratch again? I'll listen to the whole thing. And I mean, there were a couple that I remember hearing back to back multiple times on the same day that way. Chaos AD was one of the big ones. Like I remember hearing Chaos AD for the first time, and that groove that they play at like I think it's about the 1 minute and a half mark on Refuse Resist. The da 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 da. I remember just on the headphones when I heard it for the first time, I was like, "This is the fucking heaviest shit that I have ever heard." And another one like that, when I heard Far Beyond Driven for the first time, because I was already into Vulgar Display of Power, but like Far Beyond Driven was, relatively speaking, because of my frame of reference being pretty limited at the time, it was such a step up as far as heaviness was concerned. Like I heard Strength Beyond Strength, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is fucking insane. I immediately bought that. But tell me something. So when did you pick up a guitar, and when did the musician side of your interest in music begin?
I think I picked up guitar around 9 years old. My father taught me the first chords. So something like 9. But I think immediately, my father is like playing a lot of music. He's Jimi Hendrix and Mark Knopfler, Dire Straits, Fresh Cream, stuff like that. I think from him I guess I got interested quite fast.
Yeah, my dad was into similar music, Dire Straits in particular. I went to the Munich high-end hi-fi show, and I heard You and Your Friends by Dire Straits more times than I think is healthy for a human being to hear. And the worst thing is, I was so sick of it while I was there, and now I've come home and I keep putting it on hi-fi. It's like you listen to it, and it's like, this is probably the millionth time I'm hearing the song, but it's actually fucking great. It's got such a cool vibe to it, and I mean, he's a incredible guitarist, Mark Knopfler.
Indeed.
But so I mean, by that point, you're starting to get into the heavier stuff. What were you learning to play along to? Like, because I mean, Dire Straits is pretty technical, right?
Guns N' Roses and Metallica, it's hard as well. But that was what we're learning to, stuff like that, Yeah, I think it was for getting into the heavy music was my brother who like heard Guns N' Roses, brought it home, and then
And then the parents start getting scared, because when you put those first Guns N' Roses posters up, they look like criminals on the the posters. So like my parents were pretty religious. I remember being there. I don't know whether you've seen the video. It's on YouTube, and I think it's a show that they put out on pay-per-view. It was like Guns N' Roses live in Paris.
Oh yeah.
And I remember being so fucking excited to see it. And unfortunately, the night that it was on TV, my parents were sitting in the room with me. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be okay. Again, I was 11, 12 years old. Like, it's going to be a little bit heavy, but, it's quite good. And then the show starts, and it's the first thing you hear the audience do is Guns and fucking Roses. And then they start with It's So Easy, and Axl is, doing the, why don't you just fuck off? And I was like, oh my God, how can this get any worse? So obviously I was forbidden from listening to Guns N' Roses. But I still kept the music in the house, and just listened to it when they weren't around. And then I ended up buying shit like Ministry and things like that, and I told them Ministry is a Christian
both my parents always been supportive, even though my father thinks the music sucks. My mother is more like, when I was younger, she came into the room where there was some slow part. This is nice. What's this? And then, okay, it's great again, and then closing the door.
Yeah.
But they always.
So pre Bloodbath, obviously you've been in a couple of different bands. I actually went back and I listened a little bit to one of the bands in particular, and please forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation of this, but Leak, yeah. Yes. So I today I listened back to back to Carnage and Misanthropic Breed, both fucking excellent records.
Thank you.
And I love your vocals on there as well. I mean, it's like I was sitting here thinking to myself, if Nick comes down with COVID or something, Thomas could pretty easily jump in there and do a fucking fantastic job.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So when did you start your first bands, and kind of how did the band side of things begin for you?
I always played in bands, like when I was, I don't know, when the Guns N' Roses era, maybe 12 or something like that. Me and a friend had this. We both played guitars, and we were in my cellar playing guitars to Guns N' Roses and Metallica stuff, and then quite early there, I instead of playing other people's music, I started making my own music and said, hey, why don't we play this instead, and stuff like that. So and I always played in bands, yeah.
And so your band's
I've always been in a band, so I never been out of a band, I think. I'm not sure. No, I've always been in a band. Not maybe that aren't that, the busiest band around, but I've always been in a band.
Yeah. And I would imagine as a sound engineer, it's very helpful for you to kind of have walked a mile in the shoes of the people that you're working with, correct?
Yes.
So who are some of the bands that you've done work with?
As a sound engineer?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like really fast out of the live music scene because I don't like the attitude in the live music scene where some of like all the technicians, they're so pretty tied up. Like everything is everything.
I like what you did there.
Because it's like there's always so much, everybody's trying to, hey, my dick is bigger than your dick, blah blah blah. Check out what I've done. Look at my microphones. My mixing desk is so great, and yours is shit, and blah blah blah. It's so much of that stuff that I hate. So I got out of it quite fast and into like theater, and now I'm mostly doing conferences.
I was about to say strip clubs.
No, strip clubs. I never done. No, but mostly conferences and stuff like that. So I don't do music that sometimes there are bands playing there, so I help out and stuff like that, but not that much music. So I haven't worked with any bands or anything like that.
Oh wow! Okay. So something very different than to kind of the again to the live music scene, which from my very limited exposure to some of that side of things, I completely get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I don't think it's a secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
And I don't like that. I'm just, if I can go to whatever place, if they have microphones, if you come to for example, one place that I came to in Gothenburg when I was going to, I did some sound for the Resistance, and we got to a show there in Gothenburg, and I was talking to the house engineer, who I guess is the best guy to talk to when you need help with the sound and everything. And then he said, I haven't seen any list from your the like mics that you're using or anything, and you haven't brought anything with you. No, I took a look at all the list that you had, and it looked fine. I don't care. Oh, you think? And he had like all the stuff that you usually need, like all the Shure mics and stuff like that. Nothing special, nothing out of the no. And he said, oh, most of the people who come and say that I just have shit stuff. So he was like, I was like, what? This is and that's
Great.
how the scene is. And
I was
that's,
about to say, great example of what the scene is like.
yeah. So he was just like, he was really happy that I was so kind to him, and I also asked him, what would you do in this house, how would you do with drums and stuff like that, and yeah, and he was really helpful. And I think it was really cool, but then it was like I did like 3 or 4 shows, and then I stepped in and played guitars instead, I think.
Yeah, and then so you were doing guitaring for Catatonia on tour, and I mean they're a big band, right? How much work have you done for them, or had you done for them up to the point where Bloodbath became kind of a permanent thing for you?
For Catatonia, I think I played with them for like 2 years or so, but they weren't any at that moment. It was like there weren't any tours or anything. I think they were going to record, or I think they were writing, but I didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
They were writing for Fall of Hearts, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that. But I quit before that, so
yeah. And so with Bloodbath and with this new record, like when I listen to some of your other bands, and particularly the records that I mentioned earlier, I do kind of hear a bit of that influence on Survival of the Sickest, which immediately made me wonder, like, obviously in this instance, were you just there to play guitar? Did you contribute to the writing in any way, or how did that work?
For the new album?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I were asked to write music, so I did. And yeah, I played a lot of guitars, and almost all the solos on the albums and my stuff, and I did the Zombie Inferno is my track, and me and Nick collaborated on the lyrics. And then I did 2 other songs with Jonas. Jonas wrote lyrics and programmed the drums, and we sat together. I was riffing, and he was like, "That's a cool riff. Let's let's add it." And then so I contributed a lot to the album.
So of the 11 tracks on the record, how many did you write?
3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And working with Nick, I mean, a guy who is, I don't care what side of the genre you come from, is an absolute legend. I mean, everyone probably remembers when they heard Paradise Lost for the first time. That must have been a fucking trip, seeing him in the same room doing, singing to a song that you had written.
I'm not that of a, I'm not that interested in musicians as persons, or I'm more interested in musicians as persons, and not really as if they're huge musicians. I don't really care what you've done, as long as you're it's like with the sound engineer thing that we were talking about earlier. If you're not a good guy, then you can fuck off. I don't want to hang out with you. Nick is a really good guy, so I'd love to hang out with him. And I don't really think about, I know and acknowledge, of course, that he has done great and really cool stuff. And the same with Jonas and Anders, of course. They also done some amazing stuff, but I don't walk around think about that. I think about them more as my friends, and but of course it's like, oh, it's really strange that I listened to like a Catatonia album when I was younger, and now I'm playing with the guys. It's a bit strange, but and fun, but I don't really think about it in that way. Really.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And I mean, I think when you take a step back, you can kind of see the, I guess not the strangeness, but the weight of, playing with a band that features people you listen to when you're young. You can recognize that. But when you're in the moment, it's kind of like when I do this podcast. When I'm in the moment, I don't care who's in front of me. To me, it's just a person. And I told Greg from Paradise Lost and Strigoi the other day, like, depending on how much I like the band, I'm always a bit nervous that it's a roll of the dice. If I speak to someone whose music I really like and the guy turns out to be a dickhead, then I know I'm going to struggle to ever listen to the music again.
Yeah.
So the more I like the band, the more nervous I get, because it's like, Jesus, Paradise Lost is one of my favorite bands. Like, if this sucks, this isn't going to be good at all.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. We had with the band Leak, we had Matti Kärki from Dismember, who he did a duet with me on a song for a little for a single, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna record my parts and I'm gonna fuck off the studio because I really like Dismember, and if he is it turns out that he's an asshole, I don't want to know that, because I want to still be able to listen to Dismember. But the other guys, like, because the drummer Chris, he knows him and said, "Fuck off, Tomas. Come on, man. He's a great guy. You don't have to, don't be nervous. It's all right." And then I stayed, and we had a really good time. And Matti is a really good guy, so we had lots of fun. So yeah, but that's
So, yeah, no. I know exactly what you mean. Like I said, there's that nervousness. It's like, I don't want to ruin something that's very special to me by lifting the veil too far and kind of seeing something I don't want to see. But you must have been pretty chuffed that it was the first single that they put out off of Survival of the Sickest was Zombie Inferno, right? Which was your song.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, because I know Anders he was like, that song is so intense. It's so, it also stands out a little bit of the rest of the album. So I think they wanted to shock people with just that track, because it's like, Sepultura meets death or something like that.
Well, they'd been going, which I really liked, admittedly, but they've been going almost in kind of a Black and Death route on the last two records. Like I felt like there was this real kind of darkness to what's his face, Grand Morbid Funeral, and the Arrow of Satan is Drawn. I'd say Grand Morbid Funeral in particular, but definitely the Arrow of Satan is Drawn has kind of sort of had some of that as well. Was it just a natural thing for them to move away from that, having done it, or was there kind of a concerted effort by the band to say, okay, look, some of the dark shit needs to go. Let's kind of go back to maybe something more old school?
When Anders asked me if I wanted to, join again, he said that we are going to go back to like Breeding Death EP style, and maybe do even more like Morbid Angel, D-side, Florida stuff, And I said, yeah, that's really interesting, because he knows that I already play in League, so he said, we don't want to do that much of Stockholm stuff, We concentrate more on the American death metal. I think you say it like that, American death metal.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that as well, because some of the American death metal stuff, it had unbelievably memorable moments. But also, if you think about some of the older Bloodbath records, I mean, I love songs like, Like Fire, Bathe in Blood, stuff like that. It's just pure fucking pure genius and pure attitude as well, which is awesome. How did you feel about the response to Zombie Inferno? Because again, that's the first song that comes out. A lot of people love Bloodbath, so there's always like a weight of expectation on a band like that. What did you? How did you feel about how people responded to the song?
I haven't really read that much. I checked for 2 days on YouTube, where people wrote about stuff, and it was mostly like this signs and thumbs up and fire and stuff, and also, of course, always someone saying something mean, and that's the only thing that gets into your head. Why does that one person don't think it's good? What is wrong?
Yeah.
I don't know why that happens, but that's how it is. But I think it's a great track, so I wasn't really worried about that. It was like I said, it's more, but people should be used to that Bloodbath doesn't just play one style of death metal. They want to, move around, try stuff out. So I wasn't really worried that people weren't going to like it or that. I was more like, if they accept that it's a Bloodbath song, or but it turned out that I think most of the people liked it. So
Yeah, and the thing is, I again, I get it. The band is an outlet for a lot of the guys in the band. They have their own kind of serious musical projects, and they use this as a means to, reconnect with stuff that they liked when they were growing up, and sort of just express themselves in a way that I guess is without as much expectation as there is of a Catatonia record. They could never ever do a Catatonia record that sounds like Brave Murder Day or something like that again, because people would go, what the fuck is this? Paradise Lost actually managed to pull it off though with their last couple of records, going back to that style. But then they've always been a band that just seems to do whatever they want to do on every album,
which is cool.
Which I love. I'm again, Greg seemed genuinely surprised when I said this to him. But when I was one of the people when Host came out, I was like, this is fucking great. I love it. I'm on board with this. As much as I got into them on Gothic, it's just, it didn't feel to me like they were selling out. It just felt to me like this is what they want to do, and it feels genuinely like they were inspired to do that, which is great.
Yeah,
but
I think that's how it is as well with Nick and the guys.
I really like the kind of 70s horror movie vibe that you guys went for with that Zombie Inferno music video. It's got a really cool sort of grindhouse kind of look. Were you involved in all, or sort of involved in at all with the making of that?
No. It was for it's boring to do music videos, but it was easy, just have the Ash who was producing it and making it, and have him and Nick do stuff. Of course Nick sent out the whole sheet about what they were going to do and blah blah blah, but I don't really mess with that stuff. I just okay, it's fine, it's a video.
You still watch a lot of horror movies yourself?
Oh yes.
Yeah. What have you seen recently that has attracted your attention in a positive way?
Oh, it's not, unfortunately, not that recently actually, as a horror movie. It's more. I like Ash versus Evil. That's great. The series,
I haven't actually watched that yet.
Oh, that's. I don't think it has an ending, because I don't know what happened. They made like 4 seasons or something like that. And short. It's I love those. I love Ash, the Ash character.
Yeah, no, me too.
But something that was really cool is, I don't know, it's quite old now. It's Tucker and Dale versus Evil, I think it's called. It's Tucker and Dale, Dale and Tucker, something like that. It's like two hillbillies in the in the wilderness, and then they come the young and a group of young kids comes over, and it all of those cliches in that movie. I love it. It's so fucking great. But it's a comedy splatter movie.
Yeah.
But I really like that. Because I like that a lot about the older movies that were. That's what I try to put in the music as well. It's like some humor into it. It doesn't, like, for example, the Evil Dead remake that came out.
I would say no humor in that at all, unless you find the idea of a guy being sawn in half down the middle funny.
It's like they don't understand horror movies, or they have a different interpretation about what horror movie is.
Yeah,
but it's just I didn't like. I was like, okay, it's scary, but it's okay. Next movie. It was so boring. I don't think I even watched the whole movie, actually. But I don't have any good new horror movies. Some people say there's I don't remember the name, but there's a new film that is supposed to be coming out that's supposed to be cool. I don't know.
Well, I saw so good ones this year that I've seen. X, I thought was really good.
Okay.
It's done by the same guy that did House of the Devil, and a movie I thought was very overlooked, The Sacrament. I thought The Sacrament was excellent. So The Sacrament is kind of like a found footage movie. It basically riffs off of the Jonestown massacre. great film. But X is fucking excellent. I think you'd like it because it has some of that humor in as well. It's very tongue in cheek, and you sometimes have to look for it a little bit.
Is it X like an X, or is it the X?
It's X as in X. It's basically about these people that go to a house in the countryside in like real like hillbilly country to film a porno, and then the old man and the old woman who own the main house on the farm that they're renting this room from, they turn out to be pretty sinister characters.
Nice.
And chaos and carnage ensues, including a alligator killing somebody, which is, as I said, it's fucking cool. I really like that. I'm a huge, massive Predator fan. So I saw Prey this year as well, and I must say I didn't think it was too bad. Did you see it?
Yeah, unfortunately.
You didn't like it?
No, I never really liked the Predator alien stuff that came after I like Predator 1 and 2. That's great movies, but this is just nah.
So there's a couple of things that were missing for me from it, right? And I'm curious to get your take on this. So the things that I loved about Predator 1 and 2, there were very memorable characters in each one. Yep. Like in obviously Predator 1, it goes without saying, you've got Dutch, you've got Blaine, you've got all these guys. And then in Predator 2, I thought Danny Glover was very cool.
Yes.
I thought King Willie was fucking brilliant. There were all these great moments that you remember from those movies for years and years and years. Yep. And I would say, even though I thought Prey wasn't as bad as I expected it to be, I thought, and I probably ended up enjoying Prey because the Predator was so unbelievably terrible that I literally, I think it's one of if I were the like grand ruler of a country, I would imprison Shane Black for making that movie. But anyway, so I thought Prey was a bit better, but what it lacked was those memorable scenes and those memorable characters. And it also lacked the Alan Silvestri score. Like I feel like it's not a Predator movie. If the Alan Silvestri score is not playing, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, it's not a Predator movie. It doesn't count.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I don't remember anything about it other than it was fun when the Predator came out. I think all the acting was shit. Yeah, they didn't have Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. Big mistake. Yeah. I wouldn't watch it again anyway.
Well, and the other thing I'd say that
sorry for the one who made that movie. I didn't mean to bash on it, but yeah.
The other one other takeaway from it that I also feel very strongly about is I don't understand why they would redesign the Predator. As far as like creature design is concerned, that's one of the most perfectly designed movie monsters of all time. There's no question about it. Why would you go and I like the fact that they scaled back his weaponry so that the weaponry is a little bit more primitive.
Yeah, but
not the face. No, I was about to say not the face. Leave the face alone. Like that's exactly how he should look.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he didn't have laser beams. He had some fucking arrows coming out. Yeah.
No, and I can dig. It's 300 years earlier, so I'm fine with the arrows.
Yeah,
fine with him not having the laser beams. But what I don't like the fact that they redesigned him, because he looks to me like he doesn't look. The new Predator doesn't look scary. He looks like a cartoon.
Yeah,
he looks like something.
Why couldn't he have laser beams? He came from a fucking spaceship.
Yeah, that is true as well.
He came from a spaceship somewhere far, far away in a galaxy.
Yeah, no, that is true.
And then he just comes out, I only have arrows.
Yeah, I can manage interstellar travel.
Yeah,
but I don't have
lasers shooting out of my helmet thingy.
Yeah, no, that's actually a very fair point.
But it was, I guess, I no, I didn't laugh even when I saw. We were talking too much about this movie.
It was better than the Predator, much better, and it was also better than the two Alien versus Predator movies, which were also awful.
Oh yeah, it's just you can watch it for fun, and if you don't have anything else to do.
There has to be. I have to really have nothing to do. I mean, like
yeah. But yeah, I usually watch a movie or something and play guitar when I, just for clearing the head out of trying to make something, and you just play instead, just not thinking, and then all of a sudden like, oh, there's a cool riff, then you take out the phone and record a riff, and then continue watching the movie.
Yeah.
So that could be a really good contender to those kind of movies.
Yeah. So when it comes to some of those older kind of classic horror movies, what are some of your favorites? Some of those, like, I guess, like the golden age of the 1980s horror film. You've already, I would assume you're going to include Evil Dead in that list. But what others kind of stick out as some of your favorites?
I'm not too good with years, 80s and 90s and stuff. I'm not too good with that. But yeah, the Evil Dead, all three of them are really good. I also like Jason is great. All those, Halloween is really cool as well. And also there's a movie called, I think it's called People Under the Stairs.
Yeah,
that's a really cool movie. Event Horizon, it's a
fucking brilliant movie.
Absolutely
movie. Brilliant.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool movies. Bad Taste, maybe it's not count as a horror movie.
Yeah.
But I've seen so many horror movies that when we were kids, we just rented everything that was in the horror section. I like, light horror, like Critters. I don't think it counts as horror, but Critters is really fun. I'll see a Critters box.
I was about to say, you're busy looking at your movie collection.
Yeah, great. It's not huge. It's just a small. It's out in the storage area of the house. Yeah, house. I'm living in me and my girlfriend living in a one room apartment.
Now that you're in Bloodbath, mansion,
the money's like just raining down.
Yeah. Now I'm on Brandon Legion's Horrible 666 podcast in the next couple of weeks, and I one of the things we're going to talk about is like favorite 80s horror movies.
Okay.
And I was really debating this. So Predator has to be number one. If we're gonna, I know it's sci-fi horror, but it's technically horror, and it's one of my favorite movies ever. And I've seen it. I watched Predator. I mean, literally, I'm not joking, hundreds of times. The first time I saw it 3 times. So it's like I literally watched it, rewound, and watched it again. The Thing, I definitely have to put in there.
Yeah. The Thing, sure.
The Thing is it's so interestingly. When it comes to John Carpenter movies, I watched The Thing and then I watched Halloween back to back. And I would say, in terms of the one that's most enduring and that isn't showing its age, I think The Thing is
way better,
vastly better than Halloween. Yes. I mean, you can still watch it today and you're like, fuck, this is a good movie.
Yeah.
And then it starts getting pretty difficult. Like, I try to think. The first Nightmare on Elm Street, I for sure would put in that list as well. But yeah, then what's name? Alien, that has to be there. No doubt about it. Maybe Alien and Aliens, because Aliens is also fantastic.
Yes.
But yeah, beyond that, I'm still racking my brain trying to kind of weigh up what the best stuff is. What I got into an awful lot is Asian horror.
Okay.
I really like Korean horror and Japanese horror. I mean, like, that's not something that has a huge amount of humor in it, unless you find the absolutely insane violence in some of those movies.
Okay.
But you do kind of sometimes watch it and you have to laugh because it's like, holy fuck, I don't know who thought this up, but it is insane, absolutely fucking insane. But yeah, I definitely The Thing, Predator, and Alien, I have to say, probably my top 3 horror movies from the 80s. I think to this day, there's not really anything that's touched them.
Not really in those genres.
No. Well, actually, I'd also include, as far as 80s, The Shining came out in 1980, so technically that has to be on the list as well.
Okay, yeah.
That's another favorite. I would have said The Exorcist 3, but that came out in 1990, so you can't choose that as 80s.
Good with numbers.
I spent my youth reading what's them the TV guide and studying up about movies. Because again, you're forbidden from watching certain movies. So because you're forbidden from watching it, you're immediately drawn to it. Like I remember just going to the video store and for ages just staring at the box and like looking at the back, and then you go home and you have nightmares about what you saw, but you still want to see it. So
yes, I don't know why, but that's
for sure. So what are the
Child's Play is good, isn't it? Child's Play?
Yeah. Child's Play is another good one, and also Child's Play is, as far as like actual monster design, I do really like. I've always liked the Chucky doll. I think it looks very, very cool, and I think that's something that's missing from like modern horror movies. The actual design of the monsters is it's just people just don't seem to have any imagination nowadays.
I don't. And it's I guess they all like people watch kids like watching it. If they watch an old movie, they complain about it's so really lousy effects and stuff like that. Who cares about the effects? Have you seen the movie? All the also usually all the old effects are better than the new ones. The CGI stuff, it looks, because they put so much effort into making it, and I don't know. I think it all. I had a friend of mine who recently watched Predator 1. I was like, what the fuck, man?
I was about to say, if I knew this before, you wouldn't have been my friend.
Yeah.
But that's the thing.
He was like, yeah, it was a great movie, but it was so, I understand it was made long ago, but when he was invisible, it looked so weird. It was like bad. I was like, what?
But he doesn't turn invisible. He bends light. It's camouflage. So it's meant to look that way.
Yeah.
It actually, I would have given him the backhand, and I would have said, don't you dare talk that way about Predator in my house.
He's gotten the backhand a lot.
So what are the plans for Bloodbath? Because we're, I think, 2 weeks away now from the record coming out, or a week away actually from the record.
A week away, the 9th.
Yeah. So what are the plans post that happening? Are you guys going to be playing live? What's the plan for the band at the moment?
The plans for the band at the moment is to play. We only have 2 shows played that are booked. It's Mess Stuff in Switzerland and Mexico. I don't remember the name of the festival.
Knockfest, I would assume.
Maybe.
Yeah. Because Knotfest is the big. I'm just actually
it's not Knotfest. No, it's not. I think it's Heaven and Hell or something like that. Maybe.
Oh, okay, cool.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing that we have at the moment booked. I've heard some talking, but the other bands that the other guys are involved in are also quite busy. So we had to postpone a lot of stuff. So we'll see what happens. Maybe some Stockholm show for the sake of it, and then when there's time.
Well, dude, you know what you're going to get to see if you're at Heaven and Hell Fest is
Are we at Heaven and Hell Fest? I don't know. Sorry, what?
If it is Heaven and Hell Fest, you're going to get to see Pantera because they're headlining one of the days.
Okay.
So one of the days is Scorpions, Pantera, Meshuggah, Arch Enemy, Epica, Cradle of Filth. I mean, many bands I don't like, but then also Venom, Marduk. I'm a massive fan of Marduk. Possessed. So that's a pretty decent day.
Okay.
And on another one of the days, Destroyer 666. That's strongly down with them. Behemoth.
I'm gonna see.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Are you guys on the list at the moment?
I can't. It's called Mexico Metal Fest.
All right. So I take that back. You're not going to be able to see any of those bands. You can ask people that were there what it was like. But yeah, Mexico Metal Fest will be pretty cool as well. Let's see what's on the lineup there. Creator, even though I don't like the new Creator. Wasp, which I like very much. Mayhem is there. Very cool. Marduk is there as well. Okay, there's some fucking great bands. Gaerea is there as well. Rotting Christ. Suffocation. There's some hard shit there.
Yeah, I think it's a rough festival.
Yeah. Big thing is going to be for you to stand by the side of the stage and shout insults at Blackie Lawless if he doesn't play Fuck Like a Beast. So,
I will do that, of course.
please do, and tell him that Jackie at Into the Necrosphere said you're a fucking pussy if he doesn't want to play it. So, all right, Thomas, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, yeah.
Love catching up with you. And like I said, congratulations on the record and congratulations on joining Bloodbath. Like I said, I know it'll be a pretty big deal. And hopefully at some point down the line, you guys swing past the UK and I get to see you in person.
That would be great.
All right, my man. Take care of yourself.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
No Gods Before Me by Bloodbath, taken from the Survival of the Sickest record that's available right now on Napalm Records. Big shout out and a thank you to Tomas for coming on the show, and also thanks to the Napalm Records gang for getting that conversation set up. Had a really good time talking to him. And as I said on my review a couple of weeks ago, it is my initial impressions of the record was that I wasn't particularly keen on them going, full bore back into the old school, autopsy, entombed worship. But there is more than enough going on that album to, to get you excited, whether you were a fan of the older stuff or whether you preferred the newer stuff. And I think overall it's a really fantastic album. So fun talking to Tomas about it, and I hope you guys all enjoyed that chat as well. The link to the Bloodbath Bandcamp will be in the description of the podcast as always. So if you head over there and you buy yourself anything, then make sure that you let Tomas and the boys know that you heard of the record and that you checked out the conversation between he and I on Into the Necrosphere. Let's now talk about some other new music. Gaerea are a band who I have featured on this podcast many times. I had a member of the band on the show about 4 or 5 episodes ago, and it was interesting having had the conversation with him serving as a backdrop to listening to the new record, because there's definitely a couple of things that he said that informs how I think I ended up viewing the album and how I ended up absorbing the material. But a very quick primer on Gaerea for anybody who doesn't know. These guys are from Portugal. They've been around since 2016. They've been on a relatively rapid ascent in terms of popularity in the underground, really ever since Unsettling Whispers, which was their first album that came out in 2018. Limbo was their second record, which they dropped 2 years later and which featured on this podcast's best albums of the year list in 2020. And then, of course, we now come to Mirage, their third record. There is a huge amount of hype around this record, and unsurprisingly, a couple of the basement dwellers that would prefer that the bands they listen to only ever release music on cassette and are only ever listened to by no more than 200 people across their life cycle have come out of the woodwork. One guy in particular, and I'm not going to name and shame him because I noticed on Facebook that we have friends in common, so I don't want to step on any toes. But there was a guy that posted a photo recently of some dude that looks like he's, pulled straight out of a Hot Topic catalog. And his claim was that this was one of the members of Gaerea. I don't quite know how he managed to assess that, because I tried to check out whether or not the photo was legit. I happen to know the names of a couple of the Gaerea folks. I also knew the name of the guy that I spoke to, but obviously, as I've said to you before, I wasn't allowed to identify him as such for obvious reasons. And I have to respect the band's wishes for that. But yeah, I do happen to know a couple of the guys' names, and I couldn't, with any degree of objectivity, determine whether or not the photo that was shared was real or not. But basically, the guy's issue was that this dude looked like he was trendy. Literally just that he looked trendy, he dressed reasonably well, and according to this guy, it was he was a poser and a fake, and I think he ended off his message with, when it comes to black metal, we have to kill that with fire. Now, I will say this, whether or not it is true, I don't give a fuck. If I found out that every member of Gaerea were, served for the last decade as backstage fluffers for Megan Thee Stallion, I also wouldn't give a shit. Because when you make music this good, it doesn't matter what you look like. And I think judging people by their appearance, dress code, or whatever the case may be, I think is the dumbest shit on the face of the earth. That little sidebar out of the way, let's talk now about Mirage, because it really is an extraordinary record. And I'll tell you right from the start, do not be surprised if you see this on a great many top 10s at the end of the year, including mine. Top 10, we'll have to see. I've said I'm going to expand the best of list this year to a top 30. And there's certainly a lot of competition, but I mean, they have released a hell of a record. It starts off with a very atmospheric intro that kind of gets us going on a track called Memoir. Memoir and Salve, the first two songs, are both, once the atmospherics are out of the way, They're both fast, furious, super aggressive, very, very intense. And they really do kind of go back to the best moments off of Limbo. Right after that, they get to a song called Deluge, and here's where the record starts to kind of take a slightly different turn. One of the things that was mentioned during the interview, if you guys will recall, this record was conceived, almost in its entirety across the space of 2 weeks. So there's a lot of spontaneity to this album that was absent from Limbo. Limbo sounded a lot more precise, a lot more carefully crafted, whereas there's a real kind of, on one hand, a somewhat loose feeling to the songs on Mirage, but they're loose in the sense that they end up feeling a lot more expressive as a result. And a lot of the things that the band have pointed to, both in other interviews and on the one that they did on Into the Necrosphere, or that was done on Into the Necrosphere, is a lot of these songs came from the sense of isolation that they felt, and the sense of frustration, the anger, the sadness, during the COVID lockdowns, and that really comes out on this new music. There is an emotional thread running through every single song, whether it's some of the slower tracks, that you find in the middle, or the tracks that, really kind of, kick off and go absolutely nuts. This is the most emotional, I think, Gaerea have ever sounded. And as a result, I think it's the most effective they've ever sounded, because I feel like this is the sound they've always been going for. And I think they have kind of reached maybe not their best record ever. I personally think their best work is potentially still ahead of them, but they're definitely in their zone, so to speak. Recording wise, I've read a couple of comments and criticisms that the record sounds overly compressed. I'm going to call bullshit on that right now, because I listened to the record on a hi-fi setup that costs more than most likely that journalist's entire 2 years' salary. And it doesn't sound compressed at all. It actually sounds really clean, crisp. There's a lot of air between the instruments. There's a huge amount of impact, especially from the drums and the vocals. But I don't think it sounds compressed at all. I would say that Limbo potentially did sound a little bit compressed. This one, less so. And then I think every performance on the album is absolutely sensational as well. I mean, the drums sound fantastic. Again, I've heard some criticism about the vocals, people saying that, it sounds like hardcore vocals. I don't agree with that at all. And I would actually go as far as to say, for folks who have found themselves let down by the last couple of Behemoth records, Gaerea is potentially the band that is the next logical step up from the likes of Evangelion, Demigod, etc. It really kind of takes the mantle of that style of black metal, with the death metal influences and with the other kind of aspects that come into it, and it really makes it their own. And it presents it, I think, in a darker rap as well. I also love the aesthetics of the band. I mean, I think, the onstage masks and all of that sort of stuff. You guys know my thoughts on theatrics, and on image. I love it. I think it's very cool. But I really do think this album is top notch. I couldn't fault it in any way. I've listened to it multiple times. I've tried to look for things to dislike, and I found none. So if you like Gaerea's music, make sure you check this album out. You are going to absolutely love it. And if you have been a doubter and a naysayer, now is the time to put that opinion to the test, because I think I suspect this is going to be a record that's going to turn a couple of folks' opinion around very quickly. I'm going to play one of my favorite songs off the album for you right now. I mentioned it earlier. This is a track called Deluge. Deluge by Gaerea off their new record Mirage. It's available right now on Season of Mist Records. Once again, the link is in the description to the podcast, and you can go check it out, buy yourself something, and let them know where you heard them. Also, if you haven't listened to it yet, make sure you check out the interview that I did with one of the members. I think it's about 4 or 5 episodes ago. So it's absolutely fascinating, great insight into the making of the record, and a great insight into the band's views and opinions as well. Speaking of views and opinions, no cowards will be spared, and there'll certainly be no shortage of views or opinions expressed over the course of the next hour or so, as we enter the no woke zone that is my weekly news rant. Starting off as usual on Metal Storm, the first headline reads, Avantasia new song online. I don't know Avantasia. They are reportedly German power metalers, which doesn't necessarily bode well. I'm no fan of power metal. And the vocalist is pictured in a set of sunglasses that he seems to have stolen from the wardrobe of Elton John. But it says here, the song is called The Inmost Light, and features another well-known German vocalist, Michael Kiske. I don't know him, but he's well-known apparently. And you can check out the new song below. Now, the question is, do I bother checking it out? I mean, as I said, I don't like power metal, and there's virtually no point in hearing it because I know it's going to be shit, but let's listen to it anyway. It may yield some good comedy value, if nothing else. I just want to ask a question, right? If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll understand what I mean. Like, looking at the music video, I mean, already I can tell I don't like the music, but just looking at the music video, the size of the crowds that this dude is clearly playing in front of is mind-blowing. For a band I have literally never heard of in my entire life. And I know I'm not in the power metal inner circle, but good lord, I mean, I would have thought that, like, I know who Hammerfall are, and you know who Running Wild are, and Primal Fear and bands like that. But I've never heard of Avantasia, but clearly they've got quite the following. Like a baby you stain. I mean, are they literally using babies taking a dump in their diapers as an analogy now? That's definitely an interesting one. But anyway. Wrap over fingers in your pie, trying to stir you inside. I mean, I get that these guys aren't necessarily, native speakers of the English language, but it sounds like they literally found a version of Google Translate from 2012, and they just dumped a bunch of their brilliant lyrics into that. I mean, let's not put ourselves through any more of this. The song stinks. The band sucks, and the guy's sunglasses are fucking lame as well. Moving on, My Silent Wake are a Albion neo-folk death doom band. They have just shared a new song called The Precipice, and apparently you can watch the official music video on Hammerheart Records as official YouTube channel below. Hammerheart Records have signed a couple of decent bands recently. So it says here, keyboardist Simon Bibby comments, The Precipice is a song that seeks to recognize and acknowledge the exhausting and sometimes lifelong struggle that some people have with profound feelings of hopelessness that can lead to suicide. It's a song for those in pain. It's a plea for anyone in that dark place to reach out and talk to someone in the hope of finding a way through. I don't know if it's just me, but there seems to have been a huge number of these death doom bands cropping up again recently. I mean, that was a scene that I felt had kind of died out, in the early 2000s when a lot of the old guard from the late 90s, decided that they were going to, try to be Depeche Mode instead. And obviously there were some of the stalwarts like My Dying Bride who, kept the flame burning. But there were also so many shit bands in that scene that it was a scene that I wasn't particularly sad about seeing go away. But there have been some good bands. I mean, obviously we had what was a band called last week? It'll come to my aged brain in a second. But either way, we've had a couple of decent bands we've listened to recently. We've also had Muck, but hopefully My Silent Wake is not Muck. So let's listen to The Precipice and see if these guys are any good. While the fucking intro drags its way into existence, I just remembered now that band was called Mother of Graves, and that song is very good. I actually went and listened to their other single, and that is excellent. So I'm going to have those guys on the podcast for sure at some point, whether it's this year or the year after. It'll happen for sure. I've skipped ahead by 30 seconds, so we might get into this halfway through, but I can't deal with another fucking 50 hour, what feels like a 50-hour intro.
The time to die, the black horizon, the bitter cry, a search for reason. What have we done? Shroud of morning obscures the sun. The silent coffin, the final words, a plea to heaven in the frozen earth.
So I felt like right when that kind of choral piece started, that's when I felt the song needed to get a little, get a little chutzpah, as they say. So like, just pick up in intensity just a little bit. But unfortunately, that has not happened. I didn't actually mind that intro. I thought that was pretty cool. Nice atmospheric, quite dark. I like the guy's vocals too. I would hope that this song, finds its feet, metallically speaking, sooner rather than later. But let's get back to it and see if they can do something in the next 60 seconds or so to convince us. I don't know what you guys think, but I actually don't think that's bad at all. It's not doing as much for me as Mother of Graves did, but it's I will certainly be interested in hearing what the rest of that album sounds like. Swedish black metal grimness Mist of Misery and Non-Servium Records have shared the first single Into the Embrace of Winter, taken from their upcoming album Severance, which will be released on November the 4th. Do not know anything about Mist of Misery. And unfortunately, we are faced with another fucking Bandcamp special. So let's see if we can find them on YouTube. Because, as I've said before, I don't want to destroy anybody's Windows or anybody's sanity. So let's see. Mist of Misery. There we go. Into the Embrace of Winter. So, like I said, I don't know anything about this band, but it says here they explain on the news article. We're aware that it differs quite a bit from our previous albums, but the core elements of Mist of Misery are still very much present. We hope that it will satisfy our old fans and also bring in new fans. All the tracks for Severance were written specifically to fit the story of the album, as it's a concept album. Therefore, we had to carefully match the atmosphere of the story and the individual songs as the story unfolds. The writing came naturally, but we obviously had to carefully decide the order of the songs. So, let's hear what Into the Embrace of Winter sounds like. That's not doing it for me, I'm afraid. I don't like the lyrics. The music lacks bite, and the fluting right there at the beginning, that's not for me either. I think I had my concerns when I saw the floral logo come up at first, and it took me back to my friend Morgan's comment about black metal being a fist in the face of God. There's nothing in the... There's no fist. I mean, there's barely a finger wagging in the Lord's face on this one. As a matter of fact, there's probably more of a finger wagging in the devil's face, saying, you need to become more sensitive and get with the times. so anyways, let's move on. It says here, Jeff Becerra of Possessed has undergone eye surgery. Possessed founder and vocalist Jeff Becerra has been suffering some eye problems and in the end had to resort to undergoing an eye surgery. His explanation is below. Jeff Becerra, about eye problems. I'm dealing with some very serious eye issues and undergoing a series of treatment prior to a third, more serious surgery. At this point, we are worried about losing the actual right eye. I promise you, no matter what, I will always play. I just need to get through this process and get better. There's a tremendous amount of pain which is preventing me from traveling. My apologies to you all. That absolutely fucking sucks. He says here, before the surgery, on my way to have my eye surgery, and I'm taking my droopy ass eye. They say they will use fentanyl as anesthesia, and I'll be awake and able to talk, but have no memory afterwards. Fentanyl seems like the least fun of the drugs that I fucked with evil eye. He comments, after the surgery, ouch, had my right eye surgery today, so I'm in major recovery mode. Thank you for all my love and support. You've shown me you really are so kind. My, thoughts and prayers go out to Jeff. I don't know whether I've ever mentioned this on the podcast, but my dad actually went blind about 2 months after he retired. So he's been blind now for the last 5 or 6 years. He went blind as a result of diabetes, and essentially diabetes that, if we're very honest, he himself did not do enough to keep under control. It's part of why I'm so fucking paranoid about my weight and about diabetes and things like that. But, it still sucks. As much as, you wish that he could have done more to prevent it, seeing him in that situation is heartbreaking. And, it also brings home how fucking lucky you are to have all your faculties, because as he explained to me, while it was happening, it was like, those kind of dimmable lights, and he said every single day he just woke up and the dimmer switch had kind of moved on, 2-3 clicks, until the point where it was just complete and utter darkness. So I really do hope that Jeff gets better soon. What an absolute fucking warrior. And the fact that he's still willing to keep on playing just shows you how much he loves what he does. So anyway, let's move on. It says Dyth has signed with Napalm Records. I still can't figure out whether this is supposed to be Dyth or Death. But they are, of course, the new band featuring the legendary David Ellefson of Megadeth, formerly of Megadeth. And they're going to release their debut album in 2023. No word yet whether or not Jeff will be releasing any new videos to OnlyFans. Or I should say, any new OnlyFans style videos. Queens of the Stone Age are reissuing 3 classic albums. I know that Queens of the Stone Age aren't exactly into the Necrosphere material, but I don't give a shit because it's my podcast and I fucking love Queens of the Stone Age. My journey to discovering this band started off by automatically hating them, because I was one of those people for a period of time, I think, that if it wasn't black metal, I was automatically not a fan. Or it wasn't black or death metal. I had my reservations instantly. And I remember Queens of the Stone Age getting, really big after Rated R came out. And I heard Feel Good Hit of the Summer and didn't get it. I didn't like it at all. I thought the song was shit. And I didn't bother listening to any other tracks by the band beyond that. And then, back in the day when you were still making an attempt to watch, MTV2 or Headbangers Ball to make sure that you could, catch any new metal that was being released on there, or at least some new music videos are being released on there. They were pumping First It Giveth, which was one of the singles off Songs for the Deaf, like there was no tomorrow. And again, at first, I would listen to it and I would just, either switch over to another channel or I'd put it on mute. And then the more that song was being plowed into my brain, the more I was like, I had this inexplicable attraction to it. And then I got the whole Songs for the Deaf record, which is phenomenal. I've been a fan of Queens of the Stone Age ever since. They have several misses amongst a storied career of hits, but when they do hit, they are incredible. And I think Josh Homme is, one of the, as far as clean kind of rock vocalists go, he's probably one of the best of the best. There's no doubt about that in my mind. He's something absolutely extraordinary. He's a great musician as well, and I think his command of melody is on a totally different level. I like a lot of the stuff he's done outside of it as well. I enjoyed them Crooked Vultures very much. I like the Desert Session stuff. I do wish they would kind of go back to something that's a little dirtier than some of the last records they released. Maybe something more in the vein of the first record or Songs for the Deaf. But great band. And there's a lot of bands or a lot of music in the Queens of the Stone Age orbit that I really enjoy as well. Mark Lanegan being one of them. I recently discovered a Mark Lanegan live show, which was an unplugged show that he did with Greg Dooley of Afghan Wigs. Unreal. Brought a lump to my throat. Because, aside from the fact that, Mark on stage sounds so unbelievably good and so soulful and really kind of taps into you emotionally, Greg sounds phenomenal as well. And they just did, one classic song after the other. So if you can find that show, it's relatively easy to find. Just go on YouTube and get it. But it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. Okay, let's move on. Aeneon, I believe is how I would pronounce this band's name, are a Greek experimental progressive black metal band who are set to release their new full-length album called Nemesine on October the 7th via Agonia Records. Presumably, Agonia Records are no longer being egged and or no longer having their offices egged and toilet papered by folks irate about their signing of Inquisition on a nigh-on daily basis. But anyway, it says here they have revealed their song Sinistry of Heartbeats, which is now premiering. Is it the song Sinistry of Heartbeats? Oh, sorry, this is the first song called Sinistry of Heartbeats, and now they're revealing their new video for a song called Psych. I've not heard of Aeneon, but willing to give them a go. Seems like there's a lot of exciting things going on in Greece at the moment. Obviously we've spoken about a great many of the bands. Gaerea. We've had some of the old masters on, Septic Flesh, Rotting Christ, and the like. But never heard of Aeneon, so we're about to find out whether they cut the mustard. Up until the point that we're at right now in the song, where the guy is doing his, more aggressive vocals, and there's a little discordance coming in and just a bit of edge, I was about to write this off and say this is nonsense. But I like that contrast. I think it works. I like his vocals very much, and as I said, I like that bit of discordance. It at least adds or lends a degree of edge to the song, which up until that point was very sorely lacking. Let's get back to it.
Exile, rain of blast, fire and shabby stones. What's a wonder? Its destiny was blood, sovereignty. For committees sent into fear, the only fate of peace, dark anomaly. The abomination of God, your enemy was fixed before you build. Parasite, the origin of war.
I'm not blown away, but there's definitely enough here to merit some degree of interest, or at least merit me wanting to give them a proper listen. Anyway, moving on from one Greek black metal band to another, Varathron are about to release a new record. It says here they're in the process of recording a new record. Bits of new music alongside the album title are revealed in a new trailer that you can stream below. The band finished recording drums at Noisy Land Recordings and are now set to enter its own Suncord Audio Lab to record the rest of the album. The Crimson Temple is the name of the album, and it's set to be released on Agonia Records at a date soon to be revealed. So clearly the Agonia Records gang are themselves making headway in that Greek scene. A little bit like Season of Mist are with Australia. Exhumed have shared a new track called Carbonized. Gore Metal Legends Exhumed are sharing a lyric video for Carbonized, one of the tracks taken from their upcoming To the Dead album due on October the 21st via Relapsed Records is out. You can check it out below. We're 0 for 1 on Exhumed at the moment. I thought that last song started off brilliantly, and then it lost me, when it just kind of went into something that sounded a bit too generic. But, they're still a band that's always worth giving a chance. So let's check out what Carbonized sounds like. One thing that I'll say, by the way, because I can tell it's going to... Oh, wait, hang on. I can tell, I was about to say, I could tell it was going to take a while to get started, but I was clearly wrong. I do like the aesthetic of the music videos that they've been putting out, or the lyric videos, with kind of the lyrics being posted as newspaper articles and stuff. Like, it sort of has this schlocky kind of, horror serial killer documentary feel to it, which that is fucking cool. Anyway, let's get to it. So musically, this doesn't sound bad. The lyrics read like a fucking anti-smoking ad. So I don't know whether whether they've decided independently to take on the American tobacco lobby, or whether they just maybe one of them had a parent who died of lung cancer or something. My grandmother died of lung cancer, which is part of why I've never touched a cigarette in my entire life and never will. But yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of that song. I don't mind it. But as far as death metal is concerned, there's a lot that's come out this year that is a lot better than that song. Black Lava is a band who I played a couple of weeks ago on this podcast. Loved the song that I heard. So I'm very excited that they've now put out a second single. It says here, Black and Death outfit Black Lava will soon release their debut album Soul Furnace on November the 25th via Season of Mist. You can watch the video for one of their songs, namely Eye of the Moon Below. The video was filmed and edited by Colin Jeffs and produced by Black Lava and 10 of Swords. Fortunately, the fact that it's on Season of Mist means I'll be able to get one of these guys on the show, and I am definitely going to do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to message Katie about it straight after this. But let's get into the song. Like I said, I fucking loved the previous track. So my expectations are high for this one. That is fucking excellent. No, unequivocally, no doubt about it. Best song I've heard on today's news rant so far. It's brilliant. It says here, Black Lava comments, Eye of the Moon tells a story of a man embarking on a journey through harsh landscapes such as snow, forests, and mountains in search of a witch's lair looking for strength and guidance. The clip was shot in the beautiful scenes of Mount Buffalo in Victoria, Australia. With its stunning landscape, dramatic cliffs and peaks, it was the perfect location for the story to take place. Filmed in the heart of winter over 3 days, the conditions were extremely difficult, with temperatures dropping from -1 to -7 Celsius, which proved especially hard on camera equipment and the crews, where the constant snow, rain, and wind made it near impossible to capture the artistic visions. Our hands were freezing at times and could hardly move, but with an amazing, dedicated team, we persevered with its creation. And what you see is the result. We are extremely proud to present Eye of the Moon. I think the video looks cool as well. No cheesy storyline, again, fucking naked old man running on the beach bullshit that I've seen on videos recently. But, man, it doesn't matter what the video looks like. The song fucking rips. No doubt about it. Absolutely rips. I can't wait to hear the rest of this record. Sensational. There's so much fucking cool stuff coming out of Australia. It's unreal. I definitely think that when I do go to Australia, and I will go in the next couple of years, one thing I definitely want to do is going on the road. It would be great. One, to just meet up with the friends I've made over there. But yeah, it'd be cool to just kind of just get a sense of what the scene is like generally. What the shows are like and stuff like that. I suspect there's probably, if I dug deeper, there'd be even more bands in Australia to like. But it's also gotten to a point where people are now making jokes about how much I appear, and I wouldn't say I am biased, but how much I appear biased towards Australian bands on the podcast. But anyway, this is really, really good. I'm very, very impressed, and kudos to Season of Mist for signing them. They also signed obviously a bunch of other Australian bands. One of them is Earthrot, who I had Jared from Earthrot on the show on, I think it was like episode 29. I really like that band. I'm hoping they put out something else at some point in the not too distant future. I think that's actually the first ever interview that I did for Season of Mist as well. Or that was arranged by Season of Mist, I should say. Anyway, okay, Theotoxin have released a new song. It says Theotoxin's fragment, Toten Rue, is due on the 28th of October. And now you can listen to Towards the Chasm, a premiere single from the record below. Theotoxin, I'm interested in the article by virtue of the fact that the guy's got a goat's head here with some sort of evil sigil, and he's got corpse paint on. So besides that, I've zero idea who Theotoxin are, but we are about to find out. I think that's pretty cool. I was looking them up on Metal Archive while I was listening to that clip. They're from Austria. They've been around since 2016. This is going to be their fourth record. I know it's hard to judge from just a minute. It does feel a little bit like I've heard this before, and I've heard it done maybe a little bit better. But I definitely think there's enough there to merit checking out Fragment when it comes out, or Fragment Totenaru when it comes out on the 20th of October. We'll give it another 60 seconds and see if or see where the song goes. But like I said, I'm not blown away. Maybe it's recency bias because I just listened to Black Lava, but I'm interested. I feel like the song needs to pick up speed a bit. I think that's maybe what's lacking. But yeah, like I said, it's not bad at all. Okay, Elender's upcoming fourth studio album is just around the corner, so here's the last taste that the band gives us before the album's release on the 30th of September. You can check out Friar Fall below. Again, Elender, not a band I am hugely familiar with. Actually, I think I've heard a couple of the singles off this, because I recognize the Napoleon Wild Boar, which I assume is in reference to Animal Farm from Black Metal Promotions. do I recall enough to know that I liked it or not? Probably is telling that I can't remember off the top of my head whether this was my kind of thing. I do like Animal Farm though. I know I make reference to it quite a lot on this podcast. I mean, it's probably no secret that it's in my view, I think it's one of the best books that's ever been written. Anyways, let's hear what Friar Fall sounds like. No, fuck that. This does absolutely nothing for me. I don't know if it does much for other folks, but it's just, it sounds like it's just going nowhere. There's nothing grabbing me by the inner linings of the stomach and getting me excited. In any case, that brings us back to Destroyer 666. I spoke about their new song last week. I've actually since heard the new album. And I'll let you in on a little secret. It's pretty good. If you like Destroyer 666, you're gonna like it. I really like that song. Noticed a fair degree of hate for it on the interwebs, but that's no surprise because KK isn't the most likable guy. Now, I did want to talk about this because Destroyer 666 is probably a nice segue into the good news for those of you that spend your nights thrashing about sleeplessly, stressed about whether or not your favorite black metal bands voted for or would vote if they lived in the United States for Bernie Sanders. Hello Inquisitor of RateYourMusic.com has updated his brilliant list, Black Metal and Their Politics. And I know this because some of the miscreants who I see pop up on my feed on Twitter from time to time were very excited about this, and were keen to go in and compare notes and also, whether or not Hello Inquisitor had made sure that he'd found everyone, all of the truly bad people, and name and shame them on his exhaustive list. Now, he has a crack rating system that he uses. As you can expect, at the very top, the worst of the worst receive a rating of Nazi, denoted here simply by the swastika symbol, and defined as either explicitly National Socialist, fascists, or racist in some way. The music itself does not necessarily have to be NSBM to get this rating, he says. We then go on a sliding scale from sketchy, where there is at least some evidence that the artist is fascistic or racist, not very sketchy, which says there are no legitimate warning signs, but potentially an unresolved history of problematic associations. You get not sketchy, and then finally, for the most pure of black metal bands, according to this imbecile, those people win the coveted hammer and sickle symbol. And this is specifically reserved for a category of leftist black metal acts or artists. That may include left-leaning anarchists, communists, and various kinds of socialists. It does not include mainstream progressives, and the music itself does not necessarily have to be RABM, no matter what, I don't know what the fuck that even is, to get this rating. I don't understand why you would choose a symbol that was responsible historically for the death of over 100 million people and the suffering of millions more besides, as your mark of excellence. But then again, anybody who embraces communism or socialism, or even somebody who's an avowed anarchist, needs to when it comes to any kind of intellectual discussion, they immediately are rendered moot, in my opinion. But anyways, naturally, as you can expect, some of our favorites are included on this list. Ecclese receives the rating of sketchy, and it's based entirely on a quote by a guy called U Decapitant off of Reddit, and he says that Nas Alchemeth, the main guy from Ecclese, is also the main guy from Nightbringer, who included a sample of Julius Evola on one of his albums, hiding behind the typical apolitical bullshit in interviews. I also managed to find his personal Facebook once, and it was full of Jordan Peterson interviews and other Western culture chudliness. Whether he's an actual Nazi is up for debate, but his politics are definitely shit. So because Nas Alchemeth would not vote for Bernie Sanders or AOC or any of the other leftist riffraff in America, and because he dared to like the readings of Jordan Peterson, he's automatically borderline Nazi and racist. And the whole Julius Evola little argument that the Ecclese naysayers make, I also think is laughable in the face of the racist bullshit that came out of the mouth of Aleister Crowley, of Charles Manson, and of various other people that have been sampled ad nauseum, not only on black metal, but death metal and loads of other stuff besides, bands that would never ever make this list. Anyways, moving on, again, there are other bands on here that we would expect, the likes of Burzum, naturally, and I think naturally, if you were going to make a list of guys that have, sketchy background or at least sketchy beliefs, Varg is most certainly going to be on that list. Dawn Raid, one of the most overrated loads of garbage I've ever heard in my entire life. They receive the Hammer and Sickle symbol of excellence. So does Death Heaven, or at least they are said that potentially they could ascend to that level. Depending on how hard they rail against Trump, I would assume, and Trump voters, and how hard they push for whichever imbecile the Democrats are going to put out in 2024. Here's a very interesting one that I thought demonstrates Hello Inquisitor's ability to do some serious logic and mental gymnastics. Emperor received the rating of not very sketchy, and the justification is provided thusly. Despite the actions of Faust, Emperor's ex-drummer, who assisted Varg Vikernes in his church burnings and who killed a gay man, quote-unquote, just because, Emperor in its modern state would seem to be apparently devoid of any particularly alarming political ideals. Lead vocalist Ishon has even liked posts on social media in support of LGBT rights and feminist politics. One hitch being that Samoth, who has taken up the role of drummer since Faust's departure, he is not the drummer, he is the guitarist, had you bothered to look beyond your copy of Das Kapital when researching for this, you would have known that. He has referred to Faust's victim as a homosexual human pig. That was nearing 30 years ago, but the language is unresolved. I think that, clearly what's happened here is Ishon has vindicated the entire band and their background simply by liking a couple of LGBT rights and feminist politics tweets. So to Varg, I say you best start following Ilan Omar and retweeting a couple of her best posts. And then you too will be finding yourself vindicated. You will probably never be able to purify yourself entirely, but you could aim, if you work really hard, for the grand sigil of idiocy that is the Hammer and Sickle. The one I find on this list to be the absolute most ridiculous, and obviously they've got Marduk here also as Nazis, they've got Mayhem as Nazis. Mayhem is Nazi by virtue of the fact that they have Hellhammer in as their drummer, and apparently they don't like the fact that Ghoul has been known to follow Sargon of Akkad as well as Black Pigeon Speaks on Facebook. Sargon of Akkad is a center-left classical liberal. Black Pigeon Speaks I barely know, but according to this guy, figures prominent in the online right wing. I would assume he's also one of the guys that cheered as in the last week. Apparently, Ben Shapiro was accused of radicalizing the young. One of the most anodyne, by conservative standards, anodyne, inoffensive people, and a guy who, believes that you should preserve your virginity and your male and female dignity for the confines of marriage, is now corrupting the young. But the fucking trash that they push online, that's absolutely fine. But the most insane inclusion on this list, and the one that I did find, borderline offensive. I mean, I don't find any of this truly offensive because the guy is a fucking mental weakling, and I'm not surprised that he would, that there are contingents of people in the metal sphere online that would, put together and revel in trash like this. But anyway, it says here, Primordial, they received the rating of Nazi. Why? In the past, the band associated with bands with white supremacist ties, such as Gospel of the Horns and Destroyer 666, as well as giving thanks in their liner notes to people like Michael Moynihan, someone infamous for saying things such as, "We should open the gas chambers again." In more recent times, the band have shown themselves to believe in the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory of cultural Marxism, and have implied several times that their belief that Europe is falling into degeneracy. Now, let's unpick those. So firstly, the association with Gospel of the Horns and Destroyer 666. I know plenty of people that know KK, and most people will say he's a complicated man and a guy who probably needs a handler when he talks in public, but he's not a white supremacist. I can't speak to the guys in Gospel of the Horns, and as far as Michael Moynihan is concerned, whether or not he said those things post or pre being included in the liner notes, I really don't know. What I do know is I know Alan the Man, and I know Primordial's music. I've never once seen anything remotely racist about it, and Alan's political views, I believe, to be pretty left of center. So, where they come on this nonsense, I have no idea. The so-called anti-Semitic conspiracy theory of cultural Marxism is about as anti-Semitic as believing that you should have bodily autonomy and not be, forced to take the vaccine. Every single thing that people like the fucking simpleton that wrote this list disagrees with, they immediately lump as racist or anti-Semitic or, what have you, because that automatically renders your argument against them worthless, because why would you argue with a Nazi or an anti-Semite or a racist? Cultural Marxism is simply the exactly what this idiot is doing in practice. It is using ideal or viewing every single piece of art, opinion, literature, what have you, through a ideological bent, and purging from society anything that you dislike or agree with. And the idea that, saying that Europe is falling into degeneracy makes you a bad person, I think is fucking insane as well, because I think that objectively, nobody can possibly look at Europe and say that things are going well and that Europe is being run properly and that it is not falling into a state of absolute fucking despair. So anyway, thought I would share that with you guys. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but again, for those of you that weep yourself to sleep every night wondering what your favorite band ticked on the when they went to the voting ballot, you now have an opportunity to do a deep dive. I also checked out Hal Inquisitor's favorite bands. I think on Rate My Music, the bands that he gave a 5 out of 5 rating to included Coldplay. So a real sleuth and fucking subject matter expert when it comes to black metal, no doubt. Anyway, let's go over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music, and as always, Ted Nugent Watch was hot, was bang on it once again, as they discovered that the Nuge has railed against big tech. They're admitting they're censoring and denying First Amendment rights. They have admitted that they're censoring. So this is one of those things where you have some people that are so deranged or ideologically deranged that they will look at their opponents, and this is true again of the left or the right. There are things that, the Bernie bros have said that I agree with. There's things that AOC, very few, but there are things that AOC have said that, maybe you can look at it through some, alcohol haze and go, well, maybe she's got a reasonable point there. But it's true of guys like Ted as well. Not everything that Ted Nugent says is insane, and he's 100% right about big tech and what they're doing. And what they're doing is it's not necessarily just censorship; it's also swaying public opinion at their whim, and based on their own ideological beliefs and their own world views, and that's not right. So anyway, I'm not going to go into detail on that article, but I did have to mention it when it caught my eye. Next one. Slash accidentally bumped into Axl Rose during a Guns N' Roses concert in Brazil. On that photo, they both look like they need to be joining Weight Watchers as soon as possible. Megadeth's Dave Mustaine, I try to be as solid as I can with people. And then I assume he added, except when they cross me, at which point my Jitkindo mastery comes to the fore and I immediately destroy them. Megadeth have received platinum and gold records after Los Angeles concerts. What for, I wonder? Thrash metal pioneers and metal icons Megadeth were presented with plaques to commemorate the RIAA certification for platinum sales of 1992's Symphony of Destruction and the gold status of 1986's Peace Sells But Who's Buying and 1990's Holy War's The Punishment Due. Taking a pause from dunking on Dave Mustaine, I'll say again, Holy War's one of the greatest songs ever written, in my opinion. Absolutely incredible. The guitar solo, the first guitar solo on that song is just absolutely phenomenal. And it's, again, Dave at his very best, in my opinion. Frank Bello explains Anthrax's European tour cancellation was 3 times the original budget. This is something I've been curious about because I noticed that Ministry had cancelled their appearance at the Damnation Festival as well. And I did predict a couple of months ago, or I was about to say, I think might even be earlier this year, or late last year, that we would see a lot of these cancellations because of the fact that the cost of everything is going up exponentially. The infrastructure isn't coping. Everything from the fucking airlines, through to the fuel depots and all sorts of things like that is in a state of fucking shambles. So I'm not surprised that bands that are supposed to come to Europe are cancelling. But anyway, it says here, in a recent interview with blabmouth.net, bassist Frank Bello elaborated on Anthrax's decision to scrap the European gigs and forge ahead with only the United Kingdom dates. When was the last time we cancelled the European tour, asked Frank. We've never done it. The God's honest truth, everything budgeting-wise is insane right now. We budgeted it last year and came back to this year with the gas lines and all the shit that's going on. It was 3 times the budget. We would have gone into a bad deficit. Horrible. And the promoters are saying it doesn't make sense for you guys to do it. The buses, just life in general, it's horrible. We were able to salvage the UK, but people know us. They know we'll be back. We love it there. I can't wait to go back. It's just a bummer that life is in the way of metal. What's going on in the world is in the way of metal and making people feel good with our music. He's absolutely right, and I expect to see a lot more of that. And I think it's going to have a very shitty impact on the state of live music in Europe in general. I mean, can you imagine what a fucking Rammstein concert's going to cost you now, based on the price of fuel, and based on how much fuel they need to burn through with that pyro. Anyways, Tommy Lee has once again relisted his Calabasas home. One of the biggest sniveling asses on the face of the earth. Sodom releases After the Deluge single from 40 Years at War, the Greatest Hell of Sodom album. Not heard the song yet, but I really liked that last one that they released. So we are for sure going to have to listen to After the Deluge. troubled him Haiti, so he couldn't figure out a word to rhyme with mighty and decided, fuck it, I'm just going to squeeze something in there. Song sucks. As much as I like that previous song, that is a load of fucking crap. Let's move on. Ozzy Osbourne and Tony Iommi discuss the making of Patient Number 9 album in second part of documentary. Watch Clutch perform the entire new album Sunrise on Slaughter Beach. Is Willie Adler's COVID-19 vaccination status the reason he's missed International Lamb of God shows? Phil Demmel responds. Phil, I know, mentioned here. As a matter of fact, I'll read what he says. He writes, okay, yeah, so here it is. I think Willie's just in a spot right now, and it's not really my spot to say, but I get the vibe that I don't even think I should talk about it. I don't think it's my spot to say anything about Will, but he's making his decisions, and I am the contingent, so here I am. Prediction, Will is going to be leaving Lamb of God inside of the next 3 months. Most likely will end up joining his brother in that fucking terrible band that his brother is in right now, because blood is thicker than water, and those two guys, from my understanding, were very close. So, again, not that I'm going to lose any sleep over it either way, but I suspect that's what's happening. I don't necessarily think it's down to the COVID vaccine. I did, however, read a very funny article a couple of days ago, and I'm going to try and find the screenshot for you guys so that I don't entirely mess it up. But basically, it amounted to the fact that winter is coming, and right on schedule, there's a new variant of COVID approaching the US. I don't understand how people can still think that we are going to keep falling for this fucking bullshit. I don't think the pandemic was a scam. It was definitely real. I had it twice. The second time I had it was terrible. I got over it. But the fact that they keep pushing this bullshit in the way that they're doing, when it's very clear that the worst of it is now over, we know how to deal with it, and it didn't have the impact from a, lethality perspective that they predicted that it would have. And yet they still go on like there should still be lockdowns, no matter what damage it did previously. It just blows my fucking mind. And what blows my mind more than anything is the people that keep falling for this crap. But I certainly will not be. And I'll tell you this much. I will not get another fucking needle stuck in me ever. Not for anything that this government ever tells me to do ever again. Unless there's some radioactive waste outside. And I, the only thing that we can, there's some sort of boost or serum that protects us against it. Maybe then I'll consider it. But just standard vaccines and stuff like that the government give me, fuck that shit. If they mandate something, I will immediately, out of sheer reflexive disbelief, I will just push against it. If the government mandates something, watch out. If they don't, then maybe you want to look at it. But, for me, I get the distinct impression when I read some of the stuff about, I read another thing recently about how, you should be getting your 4th and 5th boosters, this winter, otherwise you're going to die and blah, blah, blah. It's clear to me that the pharma companies have made their little money rip, but they got used to that money, and you don't want the faucets to turn off, because all of us who have worked in a corporate environment know, no matter what the context, year over year, as a business leader, you are under pressure to show growth. And if the folks over at Pfizer or AstraZeneca or, any of these companies can't show growth, questions are going to be asked. Why, we had a, 60% exponential, increase in net profits last year, but this year there is, this year you're showing a decrease. Why is that? And people will respond in kind. Human beings, no matter what job you do, no matter what your station in life, they respond to incentive. And if the incentive is there for you to show growth, no matter what it takes, you'll find a way to show growth. But in the meantime, Fortune magazine also tells us that that we should be happy about inflation and worried about something else. So, for those of us that feel the pinch every single month, fortunately, I must confess, I'm not really one of those people, but the folks that feel the pinch every single month and, who it really stings, they should shut the fuck up and worry about something else. Worry about the far-right trolls online, because they're the biggest menace. Another article that I read recently that I thought was hysterical. A grandma of 62 and her 25-year-old toy boy husband defy their critics as they celebrate their first wedding anniversary and open up about their attempts to conceive their first child. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I don't know how you... I mean, I saw a photo of the woman. I don't know how... unless the woman's name is Raquel Welch, or, you know, she's like in an elite group of the most beautiful women ever. Like, I still think that... what's her name? Michael Douglas's wife, Catherine Zeta-Jones. I don't know if she's in her 60s yet, but she can, you know, she's all right. But most women beyond the age of 60, I must be honest with you, I don't know if I could get myself in a position to want to conceive. So even if it were possible. But anyways, let's see if there's anything else on the blabs before we wrap this sucker up. Sepultura's guitarist, late wife to be honored at Brazil's Patfest. Yeah, still very sad news about that. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for Andreas. You know, kudos to him for going back and dealing with it. I know it must have been very tough for him not being there, because I know he was on the road when it happened. But if it, you know, for whatever little it's worth, if he or anyone who knows him is watching this, you know, my deepest condolences. It says here, Patfest, an event celebrating the life of Patricia Peresonato Kisser, the late wife of Sepultura guitarist Andreas Kisser, will be held on September the 28th at Audio in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Performing at the event will be some of Patricia's favorite artists as well as friends. Patfest will raise funds for Comunidade Compassiva, which provides palliative care for patients in Rio de Janeiro in Minas Gerais. Patricia passed away on July 3rd after a battle with colon cancer. She had just turned 52 years old one day earlier. Terrible news. Absolutely terrible. And what a terrible fucking illness to have to die from. Let's see if we can talk about something a little bit more cheerful before we close this off. Another Ted Nugent alert. He weighs in on America's obesity epidemic. Hey, America, what the hell are you eating? He's right. Again, he's 100% correct about this. This one we will go into. Ted Nugent has weighed in on the prevalence of U.S. obesity, a chronic disease affecting more than 40% of the country's population, with medical costs nearing $175 billion. It's not a fucking disease. It's lazy people who take in more calories than their body expends. There's no... I hate when they talk about obesity like it's a disease, or like in 99.9% of cases, it's not something that's preventable. Get off your fucking ass, start going to the gym, start training, and start eating clean. I fucking bet the vast majority of people, if you put them on a chicken and white rice diet and you made sure that every morning they spent an hour in the gym and they did 3 10-minute walks a day, they would lose weight. I don't give a fuck who it is. But yet we, you know, on one hand, we need to be told that, you know, to say that fat is unhealthy or unattractive is fatphobic, and that, you know, you can be fat and healthy. On the other hand, we have to be told that it's a chronic disease and it's costing the country so much money. What exactly is it that you want it to be? So it says here, the outspoken conservative rocker who turned 73 last December made his comments in response to former U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper's warning about the U.S. military's dismal recruitment numbers. Esper wrote in an op-ed for Fox News that only a small fraction of the U.S. are fit to serve anymore, since many are either overweight, on drugs, or have a criminal past. Nugent addressed America's obesity epidemic during the latest edition of the Nightly Nuge, a news-style clip favored by Borry of Blabbermouth, in which he offers his take on the news of our world. Asked by co-host Keith Mark about Esper's comments, Ted said, in part transcribed by blabbermouth.net, "Hey, America, what the hell are you eating? I've never seen so much blubber on the streets of this country since I was in the Prince of Wales Island watching pods of whales surface." And if that's offensive to some people, I'll tell you what's offensive to God. You destroying your sacred temple with toxic non-food, with ingredients which you can't pronounce in portions that would sink the Bismarck. He's right. He's absolutely right. And the thing about it is, I have zero sympathy for people with weight issues, because I have weight issues myself. And I know When I'm on the upswing, on the upward curve, it is down entirely to me not being disciplined with my diet. To me not, I wouldn't say necessarily holding myself accountable, but you start to get to this, so in my experience at least, you get to this place where you start to negotiate with yourself. And you go, all right, I had a great workout this morning. So if I have that ice cream straight after lunch, or if I have that fucking, those 3 biscuits, or that chocolate bar, midway during the afternoon because I'm having an irritating day at work and I'm feeling stressed, etc., that's okay. And then the next day you have a chocolate bar again, and the next day you have a chocolate bar again, and eventually it becomes a habit, and then you start adding more to it, and you start adding more to it, and the scale starts going up, and maybe you had a good week and the scale goes down by half a pound, and you decide, well, the scale went down by a little bit, and sorry, I was just about to sneeze. The scale went down by a little bit, and so now I can now I can let rip for another day, because it doesn't matter. I can celebrate. It's fucking bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. People need to, there is so much opportunity to educate yourself on what good quality nutrition looks like. There's so much opportunity right now to educate yourself on a healthy diet. There's no fucking excuse for looking that way outside of ill discipline. And like I said, I'm pointing the finger at myself here too, because I struggle with it also. But I'm at least not being dishonest with myself and saying, poor Jackie, it's not your fault. Anyway, Ted continues, how brain dead, how soulless does a human being have to be to put drugs, alcohol, and tobacco into your sacred temple, sorry. And if that's offensive to some people, you're offensive, because that's insane behavior. It's insane misbehavior, and you're costing the rest of us a whole bunch of tax dollars to cover your fat, unhealthy, uncaring, selfish ass. So those are the people that can't qualify to fight for the country because they'd rather grow blubber than to protect freedom. And if that's offensive to some people, tough shit. Wake up and treat your gift from God with a little respect for a change. Don't agree with the God malarkey, but I agree with almost everything else. And I don't agree with tax money going to, help preventable conditions. Again, you place an incentive there to be a safety net for people who exhibit the wrong behaviors or exhibit bad self-destructive behaviors. Don't be surprised when there's more of it. That's my big issue with government intervention. Generally speaking, most of the interventions they put in there, which typically means taking tax, charging us more taxes, or at least spending our taxes in a way consistent with fucking government idiocy. Most of the interventions are to provide some sort of safety net for bad behavior, whether it's financial irresponsibility, whether it's irresponsibility with your physical health, with your mental health. I just don't. I don't agree with most of it. I think most of it just makes a bad situation worse. But anyways, Nuge wraps it up by saying we need to be a nation of warriors, and right now we're not, and that's shameful. Let's see if Boreas said anything bad about it. Not really. I don't think there's anything bad to say about that. Like I said, the Nuge, for the most part, I don't think is the brightest guy, and he's not my kind of guy, but there are quite a few things where I do find him to be pretty spot on, even if he's delivering it in a way consistent with being a cranky old man. All right, folks, I think that is probably about as much as we're going to rinse out of this week's news. Time to wrap up the show. That wraps it up for another episode of Into the Necrosphere, your favorite metal podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did recording it. I will be back next week. My guest will be announced, but I'm pretty sure you guys can guess who it is. I am just a superstitious fool, which is why I'm not going to say anything until it's actually properly done, signed, sealed, and in the bank. We are going to play out with a track off the new Mork, a man who unfortunately will never appear on the podcast because let's just say there's a mutual dislike between myself and his PR rep. But in the meantime, I hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see all of you bad motherfuckers again next Tuesday.